Okay, good afternoon. It's Coach Kirk. CoachKirksTennis.com. You can find me there. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on TikTok and Facebook. And what I wanted to do is hopefully start up a part series instructional on some formal training as it relates to swing, grips, and how to improve your game so that you can go to the next level. So there's many ways to improve, right? You can improve your health. If you're overweight, you can lose weight. You're going to play better. You can do sprints to improve your speed. You can do footwork exercises to improve your footwork, which is really a great way to improve your game. If you improve your footwork, you improve your positioning, your spacing to the ball. That's going to help you improve your level of play. But what I want to talk about is improving your swing, and improving your swing by defining the grip that you're using or grips that you're using. You see, a lot of tennis players, even good tennis players, may not know what grip they're using or understand the benefits and the drawbacks of that grip. Because with each grip dictates the shape of the swing. So there's benefits to some grips and some swings over others, and there's disadvantages of some grips and some swings over others. So players like, some of the elite players actually change their grips, right? And I would advise, that you get familiar with the different grips and different swings and start to experiment with them, because you may discover a new grip, a new swing that is really suited for your game. Okay. And this conversation, this instruction can go deep into the woods. So I'm going to try to keep it topical. If you have questions, you can comment to me and I'll try my best to get back to you. But let's begin with just taking a look at the racket. Okay. At the bottom of the racket, you'll notice the shape of the grip of the handle is an octagon. There's 8 sides. And typically in tennis, we use 4 of those sides, okay, for the kind of the primary grips, okay? So let's start with a grip that mostly is universally used for the serve, and that's called the continental grip. And the continental grip is usually shown as this second panel. If you're a right-handed player, this second panel to the right. Okay, so you have this first panel that lines up with the edge of the racket. Okay, that's for the Eastern backhand if you're a right-handed player. And then the next panel over is for the continental. So now let's talk about how you need to lay your hand on that grip. Okay, and what I would advise is to get some reference points, the base of your index knuckle and the heel of your hand. Those 2 spots, try to lay those on panel number 2. And if you do that, when you hold the racket, your thumb is going to clasp your 3rd finger, and there's going to be a little space between your index finger and your 3rd finger. So you're holding it in this fashion, okay? A lot of modern players and juniors are being taught to hold the racket like a hammer, down low, where their index finger kind of gets buried under their thumb. And, I don't want to get deep into that. It works, but there's some disadvantages to it, okay? Mainly when you open up your hand and spread it out like this, your index finger is the one that you use to push the keys on a keypad, right? When you put your credit card into the machine and you dial up your PIN code, you're using your index finger. That's your precision finger, okay? And the precision finger, when it's up just a little bit, when the ball is struck on center or off center, that vibration travels down the racket, and your index finger is what picks up that vibration. Okay, it's the one that gives you the feedback to tell you how well or how poorly you've struck the ball. Now the third and fourth finger are your power fingers. They're the ones that tug on the grip and hold it firmly, with the thumb clasping over the top. The pinky finger is kind of relaxed and the index finger is kind of relaxed. And what this does for you is it gives you feel for the ball, more feel. So that's something to consider. It's not something you just do and change overnight and all of a sudden you're playing better tennis. But if you start to use a player's grip and you practice with it and you've got some good coaching where your coach explains to you, how to utilize that grip, how to develop the shape of your swing. Through this kind of way of holding the racket, you're going to have more feel for the ball. Okay? All right, let's continue with the continental grip. So most coaches around the world are going to suggest to you to use the continental grip for your serve. Okay? Also, it's great on overheads. The overhead and serve are pretty similar. Now, back in the day, it was very usefully used for volleys. Okay? In the ready position, it's just very natural to have the racket head above my hand, holding this grip. So now when I'm up at the net, I can make a rotation with my shoulders and my strings. My racket head is above my wrist, so I'm ready to receive a ball out in front of me and up high. Now there's some disadvantages too. With the continental grip, my strings, as I set up a forehand, as I position the racket in front of me, they're facing cross court. So I either got to turn a little bit more or I got to bring my racket back a little bit. See, now my strings are more straight ahead. So that brings my hit point back behind me a little bit until I step in and draw the racket forward. I've got to be more conscious of laying my heel back and setting that volley out here. It's a little bit of a weak position at first, but my feel is tremendous with it. Okay, let's stay on that. Continental grip, another advantage. On overheads, I can rotate. I've got the proper grip. So now I can use a good throwing motion. I can use a good throwing motion with the continental grip. Okay? And pardon me, I'm inside today because it's very chilly outside, so I'm not doing my video outside today. All right, continental grip, another advantage. Forehand volley, back to the ready position. Backhand volley. Well, what happened there? I didn't change my grip. I used the same grip for both sides. Okay? There's big advantages with that. Okay? It allows me to be a little quicker on reaction by not having to refinger my grip in a quick exchange. Disadvantages, the racket wants to go across my body and send the ball left and right. So if I want to go straight ahead or down the line, I've got to turn and get out of the way a little bit. I got to get a little more rotation to send that volley, the backhand volley, down the line with the backhand, with the continental grip. Same on the forehand. I got to rotate just a little more and then purposely think about sending it straight ahead. So it takes a little getting used to. Another advantage of the continental grip, it's great for low balls. The strings are pitched open. The strings are pitched open a little bit, so on a descending ball below the net, I can scoop it up a little bit better. Okay? Same on the backhand side. The ball's dipping. I can squat down and I can have the racket head pitched open with the continental grip to send the ball back up. Okay? Now, let's look at the Eastern forehand. Taking those two reference points, the heel of the hand and the base of the index knuckle. Now I set those on panel number 3. 1, 2, 3. And this is the same one that if I were to take my palm and slide it down the strings and grasp the racket, my index knuckle is flush with the string bed. This is kind of like a frying pan grip. Now, a lot of players, this is the one when you bounce the ball down on the ground, your palm and your strings are very related, so it's very easy to bounce it on the ground. Okay? It's really great on a high forehand volley. My strings are straight ahead and I can just crack it. Okay? Now, what happens is with this grip, it's very easy to kind of serve in this fashion. My strings are going right at my target. See, I'm not rotating my body. So a lot of beginners, this grip makes sense because intuitively, my strings are going right at my target. Well, the disadvantage of that is you don't get a throwing motion. You don't get a good throwing motion on your serve. Okay? Now, the Eastern forehand grip is really good for waist-high balls. When I draw the racket back and I turn and I go to hit, my contact point is about belly height, and with that grip, I'm pretty much on balance, really good for waist-high balls. Little history of tennis. The Eastern forehand grip started on the East Coast up in New England. When tennis came from England to New England, it was lawn tennis, and the ball tended to bounce at about waist height, and this grip was used commonly, so it was called the Eastern forehand grip. So anyway, waist high ball, really good. So what's happening today? Modern tennis, players are holding almost closer to a semi-Western. Now those two reference points are on panel number 4. Now I'm on panel number 4, and when I hold that grip, it looks like kind of a hammer grip. As I go to, look what it's doing here at waist height. The strings are hooded or facing down. So this grip is better for a ball that's a little higher, up in here about chest height or shoulder height. So a lot of the young players, and also because tennis players are getting taller, as a lot of athletes are, more balls coming from a tall person because the hit point starts higher. When it goes over the net and it bounces higher, so the ball gets received up higher. So this grip is helpful on that high ball. Okay? It also helps you apply more topspin. As you're dealing with a high ball, the strings are hooded, closed toward the ground a little bit, so I can hit a high ball with my strings closed and brush from 9 o'clock, 6, 9, 12, 3. Brush from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock using that grip. So very powerful for forehands, very good for shoulder high balls, the semi-Western grip. Okay, not so good on volleys, especially low volleys. This semi-Western grip on a low ball feels strange. In fact, what a lot of players do now, a lot of the young players, they hit ground stroke volleys, which is a low percentage shot, but it's kind of a power volley. So what's happened is the game has devolved from a game of finesse. Back in the old days, you would serve, come in, split step, set up, hit a finesse volley, and try to get to the net to win the game at the net. Today, a lot of the game is played on the baseline, but not absolutely. There are, especially on the men's tour, more guys are coming into the net. They're developing some volleys. They're changing their grips. Sometimes they're not changing their grip. They're just contorting their body to be able to hit, so we can go deep into the weeds. But there's definitely grips and swings more suited for the forecourt and grips and swings more suited for the baseline. And for a player that understands all those benefits and deficiencies and when to use a grip for a particular swing and when to use it in the forecourt, whatnot, it can be confusing until you have very good command of all the different grips and swings. So that's a long journey. That's why tennis takes a long time to get good at, and why people kind of, quit working on their game. They get to a certain level and they use maybe one grip and they're kind of more or less pretty good at one type of golf club, if you will. Their other golf clubs are they don't have as much command of those clubs. So I'm using golf as an analogy. And so in tennis, you kind of get stuck at levels. And that's okay. You might become a 3-0 player and be happy as a clam being a 3-0 player for 20 years. But if your priority is if you love tennis so much that you want to keep improving and, being challenged to play at the next level up, if that's appealing to you, And it is for a lot of people because just like anything, as you get more skillful at it, it's, it draws a lot of joy into your life to do something with more skill and be challenged to play other people that have greater skills. So I want to unpack another notion related to all this is there's many different ways to get better at tennis. Okay. You can improve your fitness. You can improve your nutrition. You can learn more about strategy. Now, strategy is tricky because to implement strategy, you have to be able to execute a series of maneuvers and point composition constructions. And you can't really do that if you have gaps in your game or undeveloped parts of your game. You can't just say, hey, hit to Stan's backhand. His backhand's weak. If you hit to his backhand, you're going to win. Well, on some level, yes, but that requires for you to get yourself in position to be able to pick on his backhand, right? And then there's even more variables to that because Stan may stand way over and not let you hit to his backhand. He's only going to hit forehands. That's very common in tennis. Very, very common. People don't develop a backhand because they never have learned it. And all they can really do is kind of bunt at it or block at it. And that's enough to play at a 3-0, maybe even a 3-5 level and get away with not having a backhand developed and just work off your forehand. Well, against a good player, what's going to happen is a skilled player is going to drive the ball to your forehand, take you off the court, and then drive the ball to your backhand, which you hate dealing with. And then that's where the point gets earned. So it's not just good enough to say, well, just hit to their backhand. You got to be willing to hit to their strong side, which is relative, right? Some people may be very good at hitting a forehand that's 2 or 3 steps away, but terrible at hitting a forehand that's 5 steps or 8 steps away. That's very common. So to expose and take advantage and use strategy so that you can pick on a person's weakness, you have to have more tools in your tool bag to be able to actually, exploit those weak sides. So that's where formal training comes in, where it takes some devotion to work on your game and understand how these grips and swings, what their benefits and drawbacks are, and which ones are going to be easier for you to utilize. Okay? Well, we covered a lot of ground today on just kind of touching the surface of grips. Now, one more thing that happens is as you play more, you may find that you're going to refinger your grip and move it around, and you might end up between grips, and that's called a composite. So I myself use a composite grip on my forehand. My index knuckle is somewhere between the continental side and the eastern, and the heel of my hand is up more toward the eastern backhand. So I'm holding it in this fashion. If you can see, the heel of my hand is kind of on this, between panel number 1 and panel number 2, right on this ridge. And then my index knuckle is down between the eastern forehand and the continental grip on this ridge between panel 2 and panel 3. Okay? And that's something that I use. It helps me with volleys. It helps me apply backspin. It helps me on high balls use a blocking motion. It helps me on overheads. It helps me on hitting underspin. It also helps me on cross-court shots where I kind of roll midnight around the ball to kind of curl it in with topspin. A little bit too much to unpack that right now, but I use a composite grip, but I also roll my grip around and get closer to a semi-western grip, and I take those 2 reference points and I'm just under an eastern forehand grip, and I use that. I have to get a lot of space from the ball to use that grip so that I can catch the ball out here. Also, I want to hit that ball at about between belly and chest height, so I need a lot of space so that I can come through and fan the ball. And I like using that grip and that positioning when I'm in the ad court, hitting cross court to somebody's backhand. So anyway, that's what's great about the game. There's a lot of different ways to use the different grips and different swings. Depends on your tallness, kind of your level of fitness for sure, your mobility. If you don't have good mobility, you may be kind of stuck using one grip. So enhance, do the other parts of your game that you can do on your own. Improve your fitness and strength and your cardio. Improve your speed. It certainly helps to have a coach to take you through some of that stuff, or a trainer. But you can do those things on your own. If you improve your mobility, now you're much more stationed to be in a position to start experimenting with these different grips, because you got to be able to get your body into different positions and do that early enough so that you can prepare early enough to be able to execute the shot. Well, gosh, I covered a lot of ground here today. Next part series, I want to get into even more detail. So if you have questions about what I discussed today, give me a comment, question. I'll try my best to get back to you quickly. And get out and play tennis. It's great for your health, and it's a fun game, and it's on the rise right now, and I wish you success.